Hello and welcome. It is July 7th, 2026, and just 48 hours ago, NASA's Deep Space Network logged something from the object known as 3I/Atlas that has a mere 0.02% chance of being a natural cometary occurrence. We are talking about a highly coherent, highly organized stream of particles that was completely directed, poured straight along the orbital plane intersecting Earth, rather than a random outgassing event. Initially detected at exactly 1842 UTC, this anomaly challenges everything we know about space. Picture an object currently positioned over 185 million kilometers away from our planet, classified by every major astronomical body as an interstellar comet. Normally, as these celestial bodies approach the warmth of our sun, they shed material in chaotic, unpredictable halos. But that is not what happened here. Instead of a dispersed cloud, 3I/Atlas emitted a tightly focused stream of ionized particles with a precision that requires a localized magnetic containment field and an internal mechanism we do not fully understand. In all my years studying theoretical physics and astrophysical phenomena, I have examined thousands of data sets and seen the strange, unusual, and statistically improbable, but the numbers we are looking at today defy standard thermodynamic models. When you examine the data from the Alema Observatory in Chile, you see a stream of particles so dense and tightly packed that under the right atmospheric conditions, amateur astronomers are reporting it as faintly visible from the ground. This visible thread of interstellar material, stretching across the dark vacuum of space, points squarely along a vector that brushes past our magnetosphere. The physics here breaks down when you try to apply traditional cometary behavior. If this were a simple chunk of dirty ice reacting to solar radiation, the particle dispersion would expand radially, spreading out like a cloud. Instead, the trajectory of this stream holds a deviation of less than 0.03 degrees, which is a level of structural integrity that we usually only see in artificially generated particle beams in our own colliders. NASA confirmed this, and the European Space Agency verified it independently, proving the data is not an artifact or an instrument error. We are looking at a sustained emission event from a supposedly dead, frozen rock from another star system. The implications of this are profound because if an interstellar object can generate a focused particle stream capable of maintaining cohesion over 185 million kilometers, then everything we have written in textbooks about 3I/Atlas is fundamentally incomplete. Consider the current situation. Right now, as I am speaking, telescopes across the globe are frantically recalibrating to analyze the exact chemical composition of the stream, and what they are finding is already beginning to leak out of the observatories. It is not just water ice, and it is not just silicate dust. Something else is riding along that particle beam, and it is heading directly in our direction. To understand the sheer magnitude of this event, we must first establish exactly what 3I/Atlas is and why the astronomical community has been watching it so closely. Discovered officially on August 12, 2025, it represents our solar system's third confirmed interstellar visitor. Unlike its famous predecessors, Oumuamua and Borisov, Atlas did not just drift passively through our neighborhood. Its trajectory was uniquely aggressive, piercing the inner solar system at a remarkably steep inclination of 87.63 degrees relative to the ecliptic plane. But what made it truly anomalous from the very beginning was its absolute thermodynamic silence. For over 7 months, it absorbed massive amounts of direct solar radiation without shedding a single gram of detectable mass, presenting no dusty coma and no gaseous tail, just a dark, dense, metallic-looking object hurtling through the inner solar system like a dormant, superheated monolith of interstellar origin. Everyone assumes an icy comet will melt and outgas as it approaches the sun, but the data suggests otherwise, and that impossible silence was broken abruptly and precisely just days ago. On March 24, 2026, at exactly 3:14 UTC, the silence shattered when NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, utilizing its highly sensitive near-infrared camera, was conducting a scheduled infrared sweep of the object's surface and captured a sudden, massive thermal anomaly within milliseconds. The object did not just vent, it erupted, but this was no ordinary outgassing event. The telemetry showed a linear projection of ionized plasma and particulate matter forming a strictly geometric stream rather than a diffuse, expanding cloud. The numbers are definitive, revealing a stream measuring exactly 14,000 kilometers in diameter that maintains perfectly parallel boundaries for millions of kilometers into the void. To put this in perspective, think of it like firing a high-pressure water hose in a zero-gravity vacuum. The water should instantly atomize, freeze, and expand radially in every single direction. But instead, 3I/Atlas fired a laser-focused, tightly bound geyser of material that defies our models completely. This is where the scientific community had to stop and verify everything. NASA's James Webb Space Telescope detected the initial thermal venting and the geometric beam using its infrared arrays, while the European Space Agency's Gaia spacecraft independently verified the trajectory of the particles, tracking the immediate mass displacement and gravitational microshifts. Meanwhile, the LMA Observatory in Chile cross-referenced the electromagnetic signature of the stream. They all got the same result, meaning 3 independent sources using different advanced methodologies reached an identical, impossible conclusion. When you examine the data, the physics here is intriguing because celestial bodies simply do not possess the magnetic containment fields required to keep a stream of ionized particles that tight. Maintaining that geometric cylinder requires a sustained, localized magnetic field of at least 4.2 Tesla to prevent the harsh vacuum of space from instantly dispersing the plasma. The probability of a natural, tumbling comet generating a perfectly cylindrical, high-powered magnetic containment field is 1 in 4.7 billion. Pause and realize what this means. That is just the beginning, because the behavior of this directed particle stream rapidly escalated, systematically breaking every astrophysical model we have on file. First, the initial venting occurred, establishing the impossible cylindrical beam pointing directly along Earth's orbital path. Then, exactly 24 hours later, on March 25th at 3:14 UTC, the internal composition of the stream abruptly and fundamentally changed. The LMA Band 7 receivers registered a massive, instantaneous drop in standard silicate dust and a sudden, violent surge in highly charged, heavy metallic ions. It was not a gradual transition, but rather as if an internal mechanical valve had been manually switched by an unseen force, and the subsequent events are even more shocking. Now we arrive at the third impossible action. As of 9 o'clock UTC yesterday morning, the stream began to pulse, meaning it is no longer a continuous, steady flow of material, but is now turning on and off at exact 23-second intervals. Each individual pulse delivers exactly 33 billion tons of ionized material into the dark void, pushed along a vector that intersects our planet's exact future position in orbit. Every single pulse is identical in volume and velocity. To mechanically pulse 33 billion tons of mass every 23 seconds requires an internal energy source that dwarfs the total combined output of every nuclear power plant currently operating on our planet. You cannot achieve this with simple solar heating, nor can you achieve it with trapped pockets of subsurface gas. This requires an active, sustained, and highly regulated energy generation mechanism operating deep within the object's core. From a theoretical standpoint, this level of control is breathtaking. Imagine a mountain-sized object spinning through the freezing vacuum, suddenly acting like a precisely calibrated particle accelerator. The telescopes are recording all of this in real time, and the detectors are overwhelmed by the sheer volume of anomalous data pouring in from the Deep Space Network. We are watching an object from another star system actively manipulate its own mass, projecting a highly organized, magnetically contained bridge of heavy particles directly toward Earth. The visual data alone is staggering to comprehend. When you look at this from an astrophysical perspective, the sheer mathematical impossibility of this sequence cannot be overstated. We are witnessing an event that simply defies the natural order of celestial mechanics in every measurable way, and the data fundamentally challenges everything we believe about our place in the universe. Then, on March 26, 2026, at exactly 14:22 UTC, something else changed. NASA's Deep Space Network antenna DSS 4.3 in Australia detected a sudden, violent perturbation in the object's trajectory. This was not in the models, it was not predicted, and it changes everything. When you examine the data, the physics here is intriguing because of Newton's third law of motion, which states that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If 3I/Atlas is violently expelling 33 billion tons of ionized material every 23 seconds in one direction, the main body of the comet must accelerate in the opposite direction. It is basic orbital mechanics. Think of it like a rocket engine firing in the vacuum of space, where the exhaust goes one way and the ship goes the other. But 3I/Atlas did not decelerate, nor did it drift off its calculated 87.63-degree inclination. The physics breaks down because instead of being pushed backward by the massive kinetic force of its own particle stream, the main body of the object compensated within 0.4 seconds of each pulse. The object exhibited a non-gravitational acceleration of 0.08 meters per second squared, perfectly counteracting the thrust of the expelled mass and maintaining its exact orbital path. This confirms an active thrust system capable of perfect compensation, a reality that has been verified 3 separate times. Picture this scenario. Imagine a sniper firing a high-caliber rifle while balancing on a tightrope and not shifting a single millimeter backward from the recoil, then multiply that by a celestial scale involving an object the size of Manhattan. The precision required to execute that maneuver requires a dynamic internal dampening system. A natural comet simply cannot absorb that kinetic energy without shattering or drastically altering its orbit. Let me quantify this for you. The probability of a dormant interstellar comet spontaneously erupting a geometric particle beam is 0.02%, while the probability of that beam pulsing at exact 23-second intervals is roughly 1 in 8.4 billion. For both to occur in the same object, while it perfectly cancels out its own kinetic recoil, requires multiplying those odds together, resulting in a number so absurdly low it practically rounds to 0. That is like winning the global lottery every single day for 1,000 years. In 4 million years of cometary observation, we have never seen this combination of localized magnetic containment and non-gravitational stabilization. Even the director of the Minor Planet Center, who has cataloged over 12,000 near-Earth objects, stated unequivocally that this behavior defies all known thermodynamic and kinetic models. When someone at that level issues a public addendum to an orbital trajectory, and when the Jet Propulsion Laboratory initiates emergency data sharing protocols with the European Space Agency, we need to pay very close attention. The consensus is shifting rapidly, with less than 72 hours remaining until the particle stream intersects Earth's orbital path. The Hubble Wide Field Camera 3 locked onto the source of the emission, and 48 hours ago, the spectroscopic data began filtering into the mainframes. Right now, the clock is running. We are watching a dead rock actively steer itself while pouring a concentrated beam of heavy ions toward our planet. What fascinates me about this data is the utter lack of debris. When natural comets outgas, they leave a trail, creating a chaotic, dusty signature that scatters light in every direction. However, 3I/Atlas is surgically clean. The space surrounding the object remains a perfect dark vacuum, while the 14,000 kilometer-wide cylinder of plasma cuts through the void like a glowing wire. Consider the implications. If our conventional model is complete, we should see structural degradation. The heat generated by pulsing 33 billion tons of matter should be melting the exterior surface and causing a rotational wobble, but the object's rotation axis is now aligned within 0.4 degrees of our Sun. That is a mechanical impossibility for a naturally tumbling, asymmetrical rock. It has stabilized itself, locked its orientation, and is holding that pose with terrifying precision. In all my years studying astrophysical anomalies, I have never seen a dataset so aggressively challenge our fundamental understanding of the universe. Everyone assumes comets are primitive leftovers from the dawn of a solar system, composed of nothing but ice and dust. But what if our model is incomplete? What if we are looking at something entirely different? The structural physics and the impossible trajectory are only the outer layers of this mystery. The real shock, which caused an absolute uproar in the astronomical community yesterday afternoon, has nothing to do with how the stream is moving, but rather with what the stream is actually made of. The data I am about to share prompted an unscheduled, classified briefing at the Pentagon Space Command because the numbers are terrifying to conventional science and threaten to rewrite our physical laws. Let me be entirely clear before proceeding. The evidence ahead breaks reality, and the situation gets worse when we examine this impossible truth. The stream is not natural, and it cannot be. Everything I have shown you so far, including the 3 distinct orbital anomalies, the 0.02% probability metrics, and the profound concerns from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, was thoroughly documented by March 26th. But the real mystery starts right now. On March 27th, 2026, at exactly 6:15 UTC, just hours ago, the ALMA Band 7 receivers in Chile detected something else that was absolutely not supposed to exist within a cometary body. When you examine the data, the spectroscopy shows massive, undeniable signatures of refined heavy metals, specifically titanium-50 and highly enriched uranium-235 isotopes flowing violently within that 1400 0-kilometer-wide particle stream. These are elements that simply should not exist in this temperature regime or concentration. Think of it like finding a fully assembled combustion engine inside a block of solid prehistoric ice. A comet is composed of water, ammonia, and silicate dust. It does not naturally synthesize or expel enriched uranium. The numbers are definitive, showing concentration levels of these metallic isotopes that are exactly 10,000 times higher than any known celestial object ever recorded by human instruments. Pause here for a moment and consider the implications. If this is a natural, previously unknown cosmological process, then astrophysics is broken, and we must rewrite the periodic synthesis models of the entire universe from scratch. If this is merely the shattered remnant of a destroyed exoplanet core, then the trajectory mechanics and the non-gravitational acceleration make absolutely no sense whatsoever. This is what keeps astrophysicists awake tonight. If this concentrated stream of enriched metallic isotopes is an artificial exhaust signature, then we are not looking at a comet, but rather an interstellar machine. Within precisely 4 hours of that specific spectroscopic detection, NASA did something utterly unprecedented by initiating an immediate Level 1 data blackout on all public Deep Space Network feeds and convening a classified emergency meeting with the European Space Agency at their headquarters. The Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics was also brought into this restricted loop immediately. In all my years studying astrophysics, that has happened rarely, if ever, which alone tells you the absolute magnitude of what we are dealing with today. They know the numbers are definitive, as 99.8% of known cometary models cannot account for this impossible isotopic ratio, and the situation becomes truly inexplicable and deeply terrifying when we look at where this highly radioactive, structurally contained stream is actually aiming right now. Let us establish what we know with absolute certainty. Today we are observing a highly contained, massive stream of ionized heavy metals, with the precise statistical probability of a natural occurrence meticulously documented. The incredible NASA, James Webb Space Telescope, and the European Space Agency definitively confirm the impossible non-gravitational stabilization. These are not theories, but documented observations, yet one singular, terrifying question remains unanswered today, a question that NASA's classified emergency briefing and the global scientific consensus carefully avoids addressing publicly. What is actively governing the precise pulsing mechanism of this enriched radioactive material across millions of empty kilometers? The answer determines absolutely everything. If this is a wildly anomalous natural phenomenon, then our fundamental understanding of cosmological thermodynamics is completely broken. If this is the violently expelled core of a dead, ancient world, then all planetary formation models require immediate, total revision. If this highly organized, structurally contained emission is entirely artificial, then we are definitely not alone, and we have just been actively targeted by an intelligence. There is absolutely no middle ground here. One of these options is our stark reality, and the clock is running right now. As you watch this, the Hubble Wide Field camera is furiously collecting data, and every single passing hour today brings new, terrifyingly precise observations. In exactly 48 hours, the dense leading edge of that heavy isotopic stream will physically intersect Earth's outer magnetosphere. The global telescopes are pointed, the deep space detectors are live, and the data stream is fiercely active. The anomaly is deliberately pouring highly enriched radioactive particles directly toward our planet. This structural signal is active, completely unprecedented, and relentlessly ongoing. And whatever this interstellar monolith is actually trying to communicate or perhaps systematically accomplish, Earth is quietly listening to it. This is an unfolding global event that changes our understanding of the cosmos forever, and we will continue to track every piece of data as it breaks. If you want to stay informed on the latest space anomalies, deep space discoveries, and official updates that impact our planet, make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share your thoughts on what you think is happening in the comments below.